Well, hello. um, Trying something new, trying something different. I am trying to go live. I'm trying to StreamYard program out because I tried to do this earlier with just YouTube, and when I shared the screen, it did not work. So I'm redoing this. But in this where I'm attempting to do cover the book of Zechariah to start out. And the reason why I did this is because um, I'm doing this in my men's Bible study group on Monday mornings. We're going through Zechariah, and I really love the book so far. And I'm also in school, in seminary school, and I'm doing just got a new class, Old Testament Orientation 2. One of the major parts of the grade is writing a commentary on Zechariah, actually chapters 12 through 15, I believe. So I've been doing a lot of studying. I love looking at YouTube and watching other people's stuff. And not many people have a good breakdown of Zechariah, of this book specifically. And forgive me because the pollen is killing me right now. My daughter's actually home today because of the pollen getting all her eyes and nose and chest and all, and driving her crazy, making her feel like she's sick. So, Georgia and the pollen. Yeah, it's great. So, anyways, I figured since I have to do this for class, study Zechariah, and I'm doing it. It just worked out the way God works. He takes everything has a purpose. So we we've been going through the minor prophets, so we've just come to this Zechariah, and we're about to finish up, and then go to Malachi, and we'll be done with that part. But just the timing of us going through this book, and then me having to do this class with Zechariah, just like, oh, okay, I guess God really wants us to know something in this section of His Word. So, the book of Zechariah. Um, Zechariah literally means the Lord remembers. That's his name. It means the Lord remembers. And we'll see that throughout this book. And it seems like all these prophets, you'll look at their names coincide with their message, with what they're trying to portray and the prophecies they have. Um, they prophesied alongside Haggai, so it's really good to we just went through Haggai, so we'll be referring back to Haggai some in here, because to understand Zechariah, you really do need to read through and kind of really study Haggai. I know that did I say that right? To understand Zechariah, you really need to understand Haggai. You really need to study through that. um, you'll see he's this Zechariah is quoted more than 40 times in the New Testament, so he's pretty big deal. And I personally believe that, even though some modern day preachers are talking about being unhinged from the Old Testament and just focusing on the New Testament, you really can't. I don't understand how you could, because the New Testament is based off of the Old Testament. I mean, all the Old Testament shows Christ. It all points to Christ. I mean, it's the more and more you read of it, it's like, oh, there's Christ, there's Christ, there's Christ. And anytime you see like the angel of the Lord, that's what they call Christophany. So it's like that is Christ, before his incarnation in the Old Testament. It's like he's all over the place. I don't understand how you can just eliminate the Old Testament and just focus on the New. I really don't understand that. My personal, what I personally like to do is go to the Old Testament, study the Old Testament, and let it take me to the New Testament. You know what I mean? Study the Old, let it take you to the New, and let it show you it will reveal what the New is saying, and vice versa. It comes back and shows you. So we'll be doing a lot of that too in this study. And of course, I'm no theologian. I'm just a red truck driver that is going to school. So Don't expect too much of me. So Zechariah, he's a young guy. He was in his late teens. Of course, he was hanging out with Haggai. They were both teaming up and preaching to the Jews at the time. He loves calling God the Lord of Hosts. He actually uses that word 53, that phrase, or whatever, 53 times in this book. Zechariah is considered a minor prophet, even though there's 14 chapters in this book. So it's kind of a big minor prophet. This is post the 70-year exile to Babylon, post the destruction of the temple. And what's going on at this time is, and you'll see that also in Haggai, is that the Babylonia has been taken over by somebody else. I can't remember at the moment. I should know that, huh? But so they've been taken over, and then this new um, reigning people have decided to let the Jews go back home and rebuild, and they've actually supplied them with money and it's pretty awesome. They're it's definitely God working and letting them go after 70 years, letting them go back home and start rebuild the temple, rebuild their country. And you'll see a lot of imagery in this book. There's depending on how you look at it, there's 8 to 10 visions. So very metaphorical, very very deep metaphors and similes in this writing. But and in this, we're just doing an introduction. We're not going into anything crazy in this. And it's, of course, Zechariah, he speaks about the coming Messiah more than any other prophet. And you'll see 2 main characters in here, Joshua, which is the high priest. And we'll see how Joshua, being the high priest at this time, alludes to Jesus being the high priest king in the future. And Joshua, it's kind of interesting, that name Joshua is in the original Hebrew is pronounced Yeshua. I'm sure you've heard that before, Yeshua, which translates to, in the Greek, Jesus. So Jesus or whatever. So it's like, okay, so Joshua is Jesus. So it's the name it means something. And you also see Zerubbabel, which he's a civic leader overseeing the rebuilding of the temple. And we'll see how this is very important. And I want to show you if this will work. I'll share screen. Okay, don't show this again. Share screen. And we will go to Bible Gateway. This is a really cool website. It's one of my favorite Bible app things. I used to have a subscription with them where they've got all these. It's only like $5 a month. It's really cool. But I had to cut back on some expenses, so I had to cancel all my subscriptions. It's not a good habit. But they've got all the commentaries and all that you can get. Interlinear Hebrew Greek that you can do. Which I don't even know if it works without equals reverse interlinear. It says it's on. You may have to have the subscription to do that, but you can do the original language and learn a lot through that way too. Right now, I'm not using that. So I know I got Zechariah 4 pulled up. Let's go back to Haggai and get a little context for Zechariah. Okay, call to build the house of the Lord. So, they're free from their captivity for 70 years, and God sends them back with the resources, with the money, with all kinds of cool stuff, right? And they get there, and they lay down the foundation. This Zerubbabel guy, he lays down the foundation and gets it started. But then people around him have a hard time. So in the second year, King Darius, first day of the 6th month, I love the Haggai because he gives it down to the day, the very day of when these things, he's prophesying these things. This is what the Lord Almighty says. These people say the time has not yet come to rebuild the Lord's house. So what's going on is there's other people, and they've been gone for 70 years. So there's other people kind of in that land now, and they're saying that they believe the same thing, and they've been worshiping Yahweh. But what took the Hebrews away from their land? Why did God send Babylon in and take them away? It's because they kept on worshiping idols over and over and over again. They come to the God. You read through Kings and you read through the Chronicles, you read through the Judges. You'll read over and over and over and over again, thousands of times. They would come to God, be worshiping God and God only, and then God would save them, and then they'd get lax and comfortable, and then they'd start worshiping. They would never stop worshiping Yahweh, but they would start worshiping Baal or Asherah or Molech or whatever, and all these different demon gods, in attempts to get an edge, I guess, or something, or maybe just to be culturally cool. I don't know exactly. So they kept doing this over and over and over again, and then they come, God would send somebody to punish them, and then they would get it right again, come and and come back to God, and then God would save them. But I mean, just over and over and over again. So this is the big. God lost his patience. He is long nosed. He is very patient God. But at a certain point, he just said, "Okay, enough's enough. I'm sending Babylon in, destroy the temple, just take you away." And that was it. He was like, "I'm done with you." So now he's put them in timeout for 70 years, sending them back, and there's other people there in their land, and they want to help them out with building the temple, but they're living the old way. They're living, yeah, they're maybe worshiping Yahweh, but they're also worshiping Baal. They're also worshiping Molech and all these other demon gods, and they're like, okay, we've learned our lesson. We finally learned our lesson, and evidently this is the point where after this point they never go back. The Jews never go back. They worship Yahweh, and that's it. They've learned their lesson. They know, okay, we can't be messing around with these other gods. This is not cool. So they've come back, and even though the people around them want to help, they're like, no, we can't do that because we can't mingle this. This has to be legit this time. We're going to build the temple our way for God, the way He wants it built. And that's it. And and then here in this verse 5. Now this is what the Lord Almighty says: give careful thought to your ways. You have planted much, but harvested little. You eat, but never have enough. You drink, but you never have your fill. You put on clothes, but are not warm. You earn wages only to put in the purses or holes in it. What have they done? You back up. The word of the Lord came through the prophet Haggai. It is time for you yourselves to be living in your paneled houses while this house remains a ruin. So what happened was they came in, and Zerubbabel laid the foundation for the temple. And then all these people around them, of course, wanted to help, and they said no. So they had this dispute, this land dispute, basically like a HSA. The HSA in the land said, well, you have to do it our way or you can't do it. So it kind of shut down the project. And instead of Zerubbabel fighting against it and keeping it going, they just gave up. They just let all these, they got all these building materials, they got the foundation laid, and they just gave up. 16 years went by, and during this time, all this building materials and things were laying around, and they started just kind of pilfering it and bringing it back and putting it in their own homes. That's where you see right here, living in your paneled houses. The paneled houses, he's referring to them taking from the temple itself. And while the house remains in ruin, while this house, his house, remains in ruin. It's like, yeah, what are y'all doing? So 16 years goes by, and they still have not built the temple. And this is where Haggai and Zechariah both come in, and Haggai's more condemning and more in your face and saying, "You guys are messing up. What are you doing?" Zechariah's more the cheerleader, and it's a really positive book, and it's really positive about the future and God coming and Jesus coming, and and there's passages in here that are specifically for Zerubbabel, and there's passages in here specifically for Joshua, empowering them and encouraging them to build the temple because they want to be faithful to God, and God's with them now, and nothing can stop them. Not by their works, and that's one of the. I think that's why I had verse 4 pulled up. Actually, chapter 4 pulled up. One of the main verses, one of the most famous verses in here. Yeah, there it is. Not by might, not by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord Almighty. And this is where he's talking to Zerubbabel and trying to encourage him to, even though he's got this mighty mountain in front of him that's keeping him from building a temple. God's saying, I'm going to make it level ground. I'm going to make it flat ground. It may look like a mighty mountain to you, but I'm going to make it flat ground. It's like, I got you. And it's like, not by your might, not by your power, but by my spirit. And you'll see a lot of imagery about this in these verses, in these sections, that just reiterate over and over again, and time again, of how God's gonna do it. Trust in God. He's gonna do it. Not only do it now, but he's gonna do it in the future. And he's gonna take care of Israel. He's gonna take care of them and rebuild the temple, not only physically in this time, but he's also gonna rebuild the temple in the persons of the Christians in the future. That we're going to be the temple. The body of Christ is going to be the temple in the future. And it points and alludes to this also. So hopefully you'll come back and join me in this. I'll probably just cover chapter 1 next. Try to keep these short and to the point as much as possible, because there's a lot of imagery and craziness that goes with this. But yeah, let's try it out and let's do it. And let's see how I get back to stopping this thing. Stop sharing. And there I am. Bam. All right. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye.